She moved like smoke, barely seen, never heard. But one man spoke to her like she wasn't there, and what she said next stopped every fork midair. "Toast's cold," the man said, pushing his plate like it offended him. His trench coat dripped rainwater onto the floor tiles. Yolanda didn't flinch. She just nodded once, picked up the plate, and said, "I'll fix that." She didn't cook it. She didn't plate it. But she'd fix it anyway. Barry, from behind the counter, gave her that look again, like she'd just cost the place 10 grand. Her sneakers made no sound on the linoleum, though they were soaked through. Coffee steamed in her hand. She moved like a shadow, threading between booths and chairs, avoiding elbows and eye contact. At the corner table, someone muttered, "Miss, more cream." "No, please. No glance up." She brought it. "Smile more, girl," Barry muttered as she passed the counter. "Hospitality." She didn't respond. She never did. It wouldn't change anything. The smell of bacon clung to the walls. Grease shimmered faintly on the edges of the menu. Outside, rain pressed soft fingers against the windows, steady and endless. Inside, mugs clinked, forks scraped. Someone coughed behind a newspaper. In the corner, her chipped mug sat upside down by the sink. "World's okayest server." A gag gift from Tasha, who'd quit last year and never texted back. She used it only for breaks. She always washed it herself. Behind the register, a wrinkled drawing fluttered when the door opened. Crayon colors. All out of the lines. Her curly hair drawn as a thick cloud. To Ms. Yo, from Jalen. The little boy from the Thursday night crew. She touched the paper with the back of her fingers, quick and careful, like a secret. "All right, heads up," Barry barked suddenly. "We got someone coming in. Big-time investor. Friend of the owner's. Y'all keep your act together." He turned to Yolanda, dropped his voice. "And don't get chatty. He don't like talkers." At 8:14, the door swung open with a gust of wet wind. A man walked in like he owned the place. Expensive wool coat, salt and pepper hair, thick Rolex sliding down his wrist. He didn't wait to be seated, just picked a booth by the window, dropped into it like a judge to the bench. "Coffee," he said. "Black." Yolanda walked over, steady steps, hot pot in hand. She poured without a word, not a drop spilled. The man didn't look at her. "What's wrong?" he muttered. "Cat got your tongue." She blinked once. "No, sir. Just listening." That made him pause. He chuckled, a short, sharp sound. Rare skill these days. He didn't say thank you. She didn't expect it. Behind the counter, Barry watched. Eyebrows tight. Maybe surprised. Maybe annoyed. She caught his look, then turned away. Her hands trembled slightly as she slid the coffee pot back into its cradle. The ceramic clinked. A sound too loud in the quiet. The rain outside didn't let up, just kept on, like a rhythm no one was keeping track of. She moved from table to table. Same orders, same silence, same absence of thanks. The usual. But something felt different. The way the room waited, like something hadn't finished yet. She looked once more at her mug, still there by the sink. She wiped her hands on her apron and went back out. Plates, orders, forks and knives and things she knew by heart. At table 4, a man drummed his fingers. No eye contact. "You got turkey bacon or not?" "Yes, sir," she said. "You want that instead?" He didn't answer, just kept drumming. A child cried briefly in a high chair. Yolanda passed the mother a clean napkin without being asked. The woman took it with one hand, still bouncing the baby with the other. She didn't look up. By the time breakfast turned into brunch, the man in the booth, Dalton, she would learn later, was on his second cup. He hadn't spoken again. Just read emails on his phone, jabbed at something angrily, and scribbled a number on the receipt. He left without a word. Barry picked up the bill, eyebrows rising slightly. Big tip. Bigger than usual. Huh, he muttered. Guess he liked the service. Yolanda didn't answer. She didn't want anything from it. Back in the break room, she took her mug off the shelf. She sat down alone, steam rising in slow, crooked lines. Her hand cupped the side of the ceramic, still warm. She didn't smile, but she didn't frown either. Through the cracked window, she could see the street glistening, bus tires hissing, people huddled under umbrellas. Inside, the fluorescent lights hummed. In the hallway, someone laughed at something she couldn't hear. She sipped her coffee. Let the silence spread. Just before the end of her shift, a dishwasher broke. Water on the floor. Barry cursed loud enough for everyone to hear. She knelt with a mop, quietly, her knees soaked through the apron. Didn't complain. Didn't explain. Just worked. Someone at a table said, "Wish she'd move faster." Didn't even whisper. Barry didn't say anything to that. Yolanda stood, one last sweep of the mop, and nodded to the cook as she passed. He raised a brow in acknowledgement. Nothing more. But it was something. In the locker room, her hands smelled like lemon soap and metal. Her reflection in the dented mirror looked tired. Her curls had frizzed at the ends. She reached into her locker, touched the drawing from Jalen. The paper had faded a little. She folded her apron into her tote bag, zipped it up carefully, as though it might shatter. Outside, the sky hung low, heavy, with the promise of more rain. A bus hissed to a stop at the corner. She ran for it, footsteps splashing in puddles, the weight of the day hanging in her arms. She didn't look back at the diner, but the silence inside had changed. It waited for her now, like something had just begun. The next morning, Barry was already waiting when she walked in. He didn't offer coffee, didn't even grunt his usual morning. Just stood near the coat rack, rubbing his jaw like he was working up the courage to fire someone. "Dalton asked about you," he said finally. Yolanda paused with her apron halfway tied. "Sorry." "Said you had a calmness." He said the word like it was a puzzle he couldn't solve. "He's coming back tomorrow." She blinked once. "All right." Barry scratched his head. "Don't mess it up." She didn't answer, just pulled the apron tight, slipped a pen behind her ear, and stepped out onto the floor. That night, on the ride home, the city passed her in broken windows and blue flickers, storefronts closed, bus tires humming beneath her seat, neon signs blurred in the rain. She pressed her forehead to the glass, watched a man and a girl walk under one umbrella, their laughter muffled through the pain. She'd always been calm, always invisible. The next morning started with teasing. Camilla from the lunch shift was the loudest. "You got him charmed, huh? You get a bonus, or just a wink." Yolanda gave a small smile, tight at the corners. "He just asked for coffee." "Girl, he asked for you," someone said from the back. "That ain't nothing." She didn't reply, but her hands were stiff as she tied the apron again. Her shoulders held higher. The coffee burned her fingers slightly through the thin pot handle. Familiar pain. Anchoring. Dalton walked in at exactly 8 swags. wearing a different coat but the same expression. Half interest, half command. This time he brought others. 2 men, 1 woman, and a mess of business chatter. They took the same booth, spreading papers like they owned the air. Yolanda approached with the pot. He looked up this time. Ah, the calm one. She didn't blink. Coffee? A soft murmur of amusement went around the table. One of the men raised a hand. Cream, please. As she poured, the woman beside him struggled with the menu. Her accent was light but careful. Excuse me. The eggs. Scrambled is. Brouillés. Yolanda smiled faintly, caught the hesitation. Vous voulez des œufs brouillés, avec du pain grillé. The table froze. Even Dalton looked up. You speak French? He asked. She shrugged. Just enough to be helpful. One of the men snorted. Didn't expect that. Dalton leaned back in the booth, one eyebrow raised. You'd be surprised what people know when you bother to ask. Yolanda didn't respond, just topped off his cup and walked away. Barry pulled her aside near the register. What did I say about keeping things simple? He hissed. She was confused. He narrowed his eyes. Don't make it about you. But from the booth, Dalton's voice carried, She's got more skill than most execs I hire. Barry stiffened, didn't reply, walked away like he'd just swallowed something sour. Later, as Yolanda folded napkins in the back room, her fingers slowed. Camilla stood beside her, stacking cups. I didn't know you spoke French, she whispered. Not much. My mom taught me a little. Used to work housekeeping at a hotel. Camilla hesitated. People don't really teach their kids stuff like that anymore. Mine did. The next day, a meeting. Out of nowhere, Barry called it a quick thing. Said, owners want to talk about service standards. But when she walked into the back office, Dalton was already seated, and beside him, 2 men in suits she'd never seen before. You're Yolanda, one of them said. She nodded. We've been hearing good things. She said nothing. They asked her questions about stress, about customers, about training. She answered briefly. Steady voice, hands folded in her lap. One man leaned forward. How do you stay so calm under pressure? She looked at him a moment, then said simply, I listen. Silence followed, long and thick, like something sacred had passed through the room. One of the owners murmured, We should all listen more. She left without a word, out the back, into the alley. The cold bit at her skin. Her hands trembled from the adrenaline, but inside was something else. Stillness. It wasn't peace, not yet, but it was hers. The next day, Dalton came again. This time he stood when she approached. Miss Yolanda, he said with a nod. The way he said it, not like he owned her name, but like he was borrowing it carefully, made something shift in her chest. Behind her, whispers from co-workers, eyebrows raised, lips curled. Now she's special. Someone spilled a cup of coffee near her station. The rag wasn't there, so she used her sleeve. No one apologized. She said nothing. Later, Barry cornered her near the walk-in fridge. Hey, I was kind of a jerk before. She looked at him. You got, something. I see it now. She nodded. That night, Dalton handed her a business card. Hospitality consultant, he said. For my chain. Training. Benefits, double the pay. You deserve more than this place. She looked down at her chipped mug, the one that said, World's okayest server. A breath caught in her throat. She smiled, faint but real. I don't need the world to see, she said. I just need to keep seeing people. He blinked, then chuckled. Is that a yes? It's a condition. Oh, I stay on here, part-time. He looked confused. Why would you? Because people here still need to be heard. He stared at her, then nodded slowly. Deal. The next week, Camilla signed up for French classes. You inspired me, she said. One day I'll speak up like you did. Yolanda shook her head gently. Speaking up doesn't always mean noise. The day after that, Jalen came running into the diner, new drawing in hand, bright stars, gold marker, thick crayon lines. Ms. Yo, he said, breathless, you're a star. She hung the drawing beside the old one, at the same register, same clip, same thumbtack. But the picture was different now. It looked more like her. The diner opened the same way it always did. Lights buzzing to life one by one. The sizzle of bacon in the back. The scrape of metal chairs on the tiled floor. Outside, the morning air hung heavy with humidity. Inside, the coffee was already brewing, its sharp scent curling through the quiet like a wake-up bell. At 7:58, Dalton walked in again. No entourage this time. No coat. Just him, in a plain gray suit, shoulders relaxed. He paused at the doorway for half a second. An unfamiliar gesture for a man who never used to wait for anything. Then spotted her behind the counter, setting clean mugs on the shelf. He stepped forward. Miss Yolanda, he said, voice low, respectful. She turned, just looked at him. Didn't smile. He didn't expect one. Instead, she nodded once. It landed with the weight of something final, not rude, not cold, but like the end of a sentence that didn't need repeating. From the booths near the windows, the usual crowd watched with sideways eyes. Whispers passed behind laminated menus. A spoon dropped. Someone nudged someone else. The room leaned in ever so slightly. In the corner, two high schoolers in uniform elbowed each other. A woman from the lunch shift pursed her lips. Guess she's got the mayor now, someone muttered. Yolanda walked past them. Calm, steady steps. Back in the kitchen, Barry was restocking sugar packets. He looked up, startled. Oh, he's back? She nodded. Well, look, about the... He stopped himself, looked down. You still using that dumb mug? She didn't answer. He gave a dry chuckle. Guess that means yes. Near the sink, her chipped mug sat, clean, waiting. Outside, the front door chimed. A group walked in, business types, loud voices, fast steps. Dalton didn't look at them. He stayed standing, waiting at his usual booth. Yolanda approached with a pot of coffee, her hands steady. Before she poured, she spoke. Today, she said, her voice quiet but full, I choose who I serve. It was not a threat, not defiant, just a truth, clean and simple. The entire diner went still. Forks froze midair. Barry stopped moving. Even the cook, halfway through flipping an omelet, paused at the hiss of oil. Dalton held her gaze for a beat. Then something strange happened. He smiled. Not the polite smile, not the smug one. Something softer, Something like understanding. He raised his hands in surrender. Fair enough. He turned, found a different seat by the window, poured his own cream from the side caddy. No one said a word. The diner slowly began to breathe again. The scraping of plates resumed. A baby cried in the far booth, then was hushed. But something in the air had shifted. Later that morning, Barry passed her a fresh towel and said, without looking up, "He's not wrong, you know." She raised an eyebrow. "You've got something." He didn't elaborate. Back on the floor, someone called, "Yolanda, more coffee when you get a chance." She turned her head toward the voice. The way they said her name, her real name, landed soft. She nodded, coming right up. Behind the register, the drawings were still there. Jalen's latest one now framed in cheap plastic. Big stars, wide smiles. In glitter marker it said, "Miss Yo, you're a star." A small girl in pink overalls pointed at it as she walked by with her mom. "Did you draw that?" "No," Yolanda said. "A friend did." The girl stared at her like she was famous. Back near the counter, Camilla wiped down the syrup dispensers. "Started my first French class," she said over her shoulder. "Hard as hell." Yolanda smiled. "That's how you know it matters." Camilla grinned. "You gonna train those rich guys now?" "Sometimes," Yolanda said. "But you're still here." "I am." Camilla nodded like that meant something bigger than it sounded. By noon, the sun broke through the clouds, striping light across the counter through the old blinds. Dust floated like gold in the beam. Someone laughed, real, full, not nervous. The air had softened. The chipped mug sat beside the register now, not hidden, not in the back. Someone had written a tiny sticky note and stuck it underneath. "Best we ever had." She didn't take it down. At the end of her shift, Yolanda untied her apron, folded it neatly, and placed it in her tote. She looked around once, at the booth, the counter, the people still sipping and talking and living. Nothing had changed, and everything had. She stepped out into the warm air, hands loose at her sides, her shoulders light. Behind her, the door closed with a soft click. Inside, the room remained hushed for a few more seconds. Not out of fear, out of respect